On the 12th Sunday of Christmas, Sharon shared with me a gift bag that measures 6 inches wide, 3 inches deep, and 7 inches tall. It's quite easy to make. We'll also be making this little tag out of scraps. Let's see how easy this is. For a large bag, we're going to begin with 2 pieces of 12 by 12 designer series paper. If your paper has direction, you'll want to put it in front of you so that the bottom is down here and the top is up here. In other words, so you're looking at the pattern correctly or right side up. If there's a pattern on the other side, you want it to be a neutrally shaped pattern, or you just want to pay attention to the direction. So although stripes could go either way, I want my stripes coming down like this. This is the part that's going to be folded, so I want to keep that at the top. I'm going to bring in my Simply Scored tool. I'm going to score 2 inches down from the top and then score the other 3 sides at 3 inches. So this is my top. I'm going to score 2 inches down. Because this is designer series paper, I'm going to use the larger ball on my stylus. Make sure that's tucked in there. 2 inches. And then remember, it's 3 on all the other sides. There's a 3. And here's a 3. And here's a 3. I want to do this to both sheets. Again, I'm going to pay attention to the direction here. This is my top. I will score 2 inches down from the top and then 3 inches on all the other sides. Okay, we don't need our Simply Scored board anymore, so we'll put that away. Now we want to fold and burnish on all our score lines. The top, remember, gets folded down like this. The sides will go the other way. Sides and bottom. It may be a little difficult to notice where the score lines are because of your pattern. It is definitely on this side, but you should be able to either feel it or just allow the paper to bend where it wants to go, because it will want to bend on the score lines. I'm just sort of folding this up and I can see where it wants to bend with just a little bit of pressure. All right, we are all scored. With our top at the top, so I'm going to fold this over just so I can see that it's at the top. I am going to cut out both of these bottom corners. The reason why you wanted to burnish first is it will help you see these cut lines a lot better. And I'm going to flip it over so I can see this one better. You want to cut off the score line. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure that you're not seeing the bump on your finished product. There is a thickness to these lines, especially since we use the wider end of the stylus. When you bring in the second sheet, you are not going to cut off these corners. Instead, you're simply going to cut across here. So here is our front. We're just going to cut across from here to here and from here to here. Do not cut them off or you will not have a bottom of your bag. Cutting across. So this cut is parallel to the top of the bag. All right. Now we're going to glue the bottoms together. Let's bring in our pieces and we want to glue the bottoms together. I'm going to be gluing it just so. So I recommend to just try to keep it as neat as possible. So don't get too close to the edge. And I'm going to put in a little bit more in here. The liquid glue is quite strong. So remember, you're gluing on the right side. And there we go, we're lining that up. You might find it more helpful to fold these two pieces in so that you can see that you're lined up straight, which we are there. So these are going to be some inside flaps. I'm going to flip it over. We'll tuck these in, fold these up, and we want to glue these sides together. Well, again, we're going to take some glue. Take some glue and pay attention to where the score line is. You'll find that this glue also gives it a little bit of stiffness. And so we'll put this up here. And it doesn't take long for this to set up. I will flip it over here and just give it a good rub. Make sure your tops are even. We're going to do the same thing over here. Now, pay attention to where your seam is, because you want the seam in the back on both sides. So here the seam is over here. So I want to wrap this one over so the seam is also on the back side over here. Go ahead and we'll put this in. It's got glue on my hand. And square it up. Hold it in place. You can use little clips if you want. But that green glue gives you some wiggle room. time to adjust it so that the top is, oops, I forgot I had glue on my hands. Now go back in, and if you want to add a little bit of extra glue just to make sure that's right up to the edge, you can. Again, hold that there. And this one looks good over here. So there you have this cute little bag. Now if you want to glue down this little flap, it's probably not a bad idea. I can see I've got a nice little gap in here. I'm gonna add some glue. It looks like I'm adding glue, but I'm really not. It's not coming out. There we go. And we'll just go ahead and hold that there for a minute. Let that set up. I want to glue this down. And I don't need glue all the way around. I just need it right here at the corners. This will help give it a little bit of dimension too. By having the fold loose everywhere else, it pops out a little bit, which gives a really interesting finished look, I think. All right, so we've got that all glued down. And there is our little bag. Now we need some ribbon for a handle. You can also use some designer series paper. You'd want to use something that coordinates with this. Now, because only 2 sheets of each pattern come in a package, if you used paper for your handle, you would not have any of the same pattern for your handle. So here is the real red 3/8 inch ribbon that comes in the 2-pack. But of course you could use any ribbon that you wanted to. I'm pulling in the red because it brings out the berry color a little bit more. And you would decide how long you want your handles. I probably want my handles to be about like that. I need to give it a little bit of room to tie my knots. So if I bring in my trimmer here, I can see that it is 12 plus 4, about 16 inches long. That's how long I want 2 of these to be. So I will cut one at 16. And then, so I don't have to measure again, I'll cut the other. We will decide where we're going to put our holes. I like to have things fairly symmetrical. So I would bring in my ruler. And this is 6 inches in width. So I would probably put my holes 1.5 inches in from each side. And probably about 1/3 of the way down here. And that's just eyeballing it. So here, I'm just gonna put a mark here. It's a mark that you need to be able to see, which I couldn't just see the one I made. There's 1.5, and here's 1.5. Right, I'm not sure if you can see the glisten on the screen, but 1.5 and 1.5. And I guess it's about 3/4 of an inch down. This one's not quite 3/4 of an inch, so we'll move it down a little bit. Same thing over here. I want about 1.5 inches. Well, not about, I wanted 1.5 inches. And I want it 1.5 inches in from this side. Again, I want to just make sure that it's about the same amount down. So that one's right on the money, 3/4 of an inch. And this one is also 3/4 of an inch. Did very well on that side. And that's where we're going to punch our holes. Now, if you don't have a hole punch, because Stampin' Up! No longer carries a hole punch, what are you gonna do? You can use your Take Your Pick tool. Now, this gets a little difficult. Not really difficult. You want to be careful you don't poke yourself. So I am reinforcing the paper on the back with these 2 fingers, but this finger and this finger are out of the way so that when I force this hole through gently, and notice I'm just going back and forth with it a little bit, twisting it to make that hole. I'm not poking myself, and it really goes through pretty easily. Now, you cannot do this when you're using a wider ribbon. So with a wider ribbon, you're going to have to get a hole punch. But with a wider ribbon, a 1/4 inch hole punch, which is a fairly standard hole punch for all sorts of uses, will work. All right, so now you can see that we have our holes. There's a bit of a raised edge here on the inside one, so it's going to make feeding the ribbon through this way difficult. I'm going to take my ribbon and, using the wider ball of my stylus, just go ahead and help push that. Well, I guess I have to use the smaller ball of my stylus because the bigger end is too big. Put this in here. I'm going to just tie it in a knot as close to the end as I can and make it tight. If I try to pull it back through, it does not come back through. I'm going to do the same thing on the other end, but I'm going to make sure my ribbon is not twisted because I don't want my handle to have a twisted ribbon. Let's push this one through. And also not this end. Again, you want your knot as close to the end as possible. Because remember, we cut these to the same length. So if we want them to remain the same length, we have to have our knots in pretty much the same position. So there's a handle. Do the same thing on the other side. So if you have brads, which we used to carry a lot of brads back in the day. There was a phase where brads and eyelets were pretty popular card embellishments. You could just attach the ribbon with a brad. Make sure it's not twisted. Where's the hole here? All right, and we're just going to tie one more knot. And there we have it. A handled bag, and our handles are the same length. Put a little bit of tissue paper in there, embellish with a cute little tag, and there you have it. All we need is a tag for this. I'm going to bring in a piece of basic white, and you can use any shaped punch, or many of our stamp sets or die sets have tag dies in them. I'm going to just use this Label Me Lovely punch, and I'm going to bring in those pieces that I had cut off. I don't even need to stamp for this project. I don't know that I should have said I don't need as much as I don't get to stamp. Now we'll just take these pieces and arrange them on the bottom of our tag. I'm going to put the glue on the bottom of the tag so they don't glue off it. Part of my designer series paper is sticking off it, so it's better to put the glue on the tag. Oops. There we go. Put that down. And this one's going to go right over the top. So I will put a glue there. There we go. Punch a hole, or again, if you don't have a hole, go ahead and use take your pick tool. I don't need to go all the way through because I don't need quite as large a hole. I'm going to just take some linen thread. And I'm using the linen thread because it does pick up the color in this designer series paper. And we will bring our bag in and just add this tag on. Use a square knot, left over right, right over left. Except for I think I always go right over left and left over right. Actually, that's the way it is in the little ditty that helps you remember a square knot. And there's your little cute tag. And that is our 12th and final Sunday of Christmas 2022. Merry Christmas, everyone.